Good evening, RJC. Are you guys ready to rock? What a fantastic night. How great to be back here. And what do you say? It's so great to have these senators supporting us. Rick Scott, Senator Joni Ernst, fantastic job. I know we got Senator Steve Daines has been right out here with us, my neighbor from Montana. But let's give it up for all these great folks that are supporting RJC. When First Lady Catherine and I, she's here tonight, right down here in front, most courageous First Lady in America. Stand up, give a little wave down there so I can see you. There she is. When we were here last year on October 28th, of course, many of you were here that evening, and of course, it was an incredible night. It was in the aftermath of the heinous, unprovoked attack on innocent people by Hamas. But that evening, for Catherine and I, and we've spent almost the last 15 months traveling the country, talking to Americans and campaigning and supporting President Trump. And that evening for us was one of the most unforgettable and inspiring evenings that we had coming out of that tragedy. And it was an evening that touched our hearts. And I would tell you why, because what we saw there was what we, Catherine and I, call the best of America. People were here. They were here holding and hugging each other, in at least emotionally, and there was a giant hug for all the pain and the suffering that had happened in Israel. And the connections between our country and Israel is so tight because of all the personal relationships between individuals and families, but also because of what both of our countries stand for. And the meaning that was there was so deep. And to have an evening like that so shortly coming after that was incredible. I remember, and he's here again tonight, but I just want to give him a shout out because he came and he spoke and he shared the videos and the frontline stories of the incredible work of all the orange jackets that were there, the first responders, some of who had given their lives. But Ellie Beer is here tonight. Let's give it up a thank you for him. Ellie, where are you? You're out there somewhere. But that was amazing, and I think it's part of why you're all back here tonight. And I just want to say it's an honor to be here with you again, and the gratitude that Catherine and I have for all of you that are here, the leaders that are here, our neighbor in Minnesota, Senator Norm Coleman, and Matt Brooks. And I got to tell you, there's somebody from Minnesota that's on the other ticket, and I don't know that he and Norm Coleman would agree on anything, but I'm just thinking that possibly because Norm was a great one. But Matt and Norm, thank you for your leadership, and to everybody here, yes, thank you for all of you folks. But to everybody else that's here, I want to say you're also leaders. We're always, giving accolades to the people that are in there, but if you're here tonight, then you're in the arena. As Theodore Roosevelt famously said, it's not the critic that counts. And Lord knows we got plenty of critics. We got keyboard warriors that sit at home and criticize everything. But if you're here tonight, you're giving of your one irrevocable resource. You're giving your time. You're giving your energy. And you're here because you care, and you care about your kids and your grandkids, and you care about your country, and you care about Israel. And Theodore Roosevelt said, "It's not those critics in the stands that count. It's those that are in the arena that with their sweat and the blood and the dust and the being in the arena. Those are the ones that really make the difference." And I just want to say, if you're here tonight, then you're one of those people that's in the arena. You're one of the people that's going to make a difference this fall because you're doing something about the things that you care about. So I want to say that your everyday efforts right now are also driving what's going to be a record-breaking year for the Republican Jewish Coalition. And so I just want to say again, thank you all for being in the arena. Thank you for being here tonight. We had a chance this summer to witness what was going on in call it the Tale of Two Cities. And the Tale of Two Cities was Milwaukee and it was Chicago. And it doesn't take a decoder ring to figure out the difference between what was happening in those two places. But in Milwaukee, and I'm sure many of you were there like we were, and what we saw Republicans, they would stand and cheer because almost every speech mentioned Israel and the bond that we have between Israel and the United States. And people waved American flags, they waved Israeli flags inside and outside the arena. And then a few weeks later in Chicago, the Democrats barely mentioned Israel in any of their speeches because the Hamas wing of the Democratic Party was out burning American and Israeli flags outside the arena in Chicago. Back in Milwaukee, 3 weeks earlier, Republicans cheered every time a speaker highlighted how Donald Trump had stood with Israel and how tough he was on Iran, on ISIS, and other terror groups. In Chicago, Democrats cheered every time someone like Kamala said that they would, they wanted to support Hamas. They wanted to, force Israel into a ceasefire. They talked about, supporting others and allusions to Iran, who's funding terrorism with their oil dollars. So it's just incredible that we have such a contrast between our two parties at a time when the world is literally on fire right now. And it's on fire because of the weakness of the Biden-Harris administration. In America, we've long adhered to the saying that said we don't negotiate with terrorists. You've all heard that and you all believe that. But what have we all witnessed over the last 12 months? We've seen over and over and over again the Biden-Harris administration just rip up that mantra, because when they're talking about a ceasefire and they're putting pressure on Israel and they're supporting Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and all the other groups that Iran supports, it's just unbelievable. They're literally, our leadership is making it harder for Israel and making it easier for Hamas. And so if you thought Joe Biden was bad for Israel, get ready for Kamala Harris. And this is why all of you've got to, when you leave Las Vegas and head back home, you've got to be doing more than you've ever done before to make sure that Republicans win this election in the fall. And because, you think about, thank you. Kamala Harris, wasn't just in the background. She actually said, she was actually calling for Israel to have a ceasefire before Joe Biden even did. They were strong-arming Israel in the days and weeks after October 7th into not taking action. They withheld weapons from our most important ally in the Middle East, in the middle of a war for survival for Israel against a genocidal terrorist group. And they were saying, no, we're not going to send weapons to support our most important ally. Then last April, we had this massive, unprecedented missile attack on Israel directly from Iran. Before that, they were able to say, oh, it's a proxy war, it's a terrorist group, it's whatever. No, this is directly the country of Iran launching these missiles. And I know that it's been reported by many that it was 320, but I know that if you talk to those people that are close to the situation, it was, and as was mentioned earlier by Joni, but it was a team effort that stopped that. But there was over 500 missiles heading that way. And yes, the partnership came together and we stopped them. And what did Biden-Harris say? They said, oh, don't respond to that, Israel, because, just call it good because the defense system worked. Would we tell any other one of our allies that had 500 projectiles launched at their country, launched indiscriminately at cities and not at military targets, but coming at civilian targets, would we tell any of them, hey, just call it good if the defense system worked? Just call it. It actually said, call it a win. Call it a win. And so when they say words like that, that is absolutely negotiating for the terrorists. And again, when you say, why would they do that? Why would they be so anti-American? Well, it's an election year. And it's Kamala's way of appeasing the radical Hamas wing of the Democrat Party. She needs their votes to win the battleground states like Michigan and Wisconsin. And how could any of us look at ourselves and say that someone might end up in the White House because they were placating and working for votes for people that stand up and yell in America, on our campuses and on our streets, death to America? How could we look at ourselves? Whatever we're doing, we need to do more. Because Kamala Harris represents that radical pro-Hamas, pro-Iran base of the Democrat Party. And she represents them not just because of votes, but because that's what she believes. And we've heard her say that. And like many of the other policies, when you've watched her flip-flop on just about everything in the last few weeks, she's always trying to have it both ways. And she can't even put a comma in the sentence. I mean, she barely, she said, we'll stand with Israel, and there wasn't even a comma. And then she started talking about how, about all the things that she cared about with Hamas. I mean, it's just, and Harris said, she told the Israelis, don't go into Rafah. She said that. She said, I've studied the maps. She said that. Apparently, the names of the hostages held in the tunnels under Rafah weren't written on the maps that she was studying. And ask any translator who works in the Middle East. When Kamala says ceasefire now, and her party cheers, the only thing that Iran and Hamas hear when she says ceasefire now is, what they're hearing is, wow, the U.S. doesn't support Israel, and Israel must surrender. What they hear is, we can hang on. We can hang on because, wow, if we can just hang on until November, she might be the president. She'll be negotiating on our side of the table like she has with the words that she's saying. She criticizes Iran, and then Iran and Hamas, they gives them a reason to think they've got hope that they're going to have a better settlement. They're going to win. She literally gives hope to our enemies versus giving hope to the hostages and their families. So I say to Kamala Harris, do you want to bring these hostages home, Madam Vice President? Well, there's an easy way to do that. Stop appeasing Iran. Stop appeasing Hamas. Start supporting our ally, the State of Israel. But there's another way where all of you can help get the hostages home. And that's very simple. It's send Donald J. Trump back to the White House in November. We will see a repeat of the Reagan release that was mentioned by our Chairman Watley earlier tonight. We will see that. If President Trump wins that election, we will see hostages released immediately. That's why they're scrambling to give away anything right now. That's why, their idea of working with partners is more appeasement for Iran, releasing more assets for Iran. But the appeasement of our enemies didn't start for Kamala on the aftermath of October 7th. I wish it was just a one-year thing. But she proudly has claimed that she was the last person in the room with Joe Biden when they made the incredibly disastrous decision about our withdrawal from Afghanistan, abandoning people that had supported us for over 2 decades in that country, leaving them to die while our own soldiers died. And that horrendous act of weakness was also, just like everything they do, so politically driven. It was driven by an idea that Joe Biden had that if he could pick a date and time, announce it to our enemies, and say, if I can achieve that date and time, which he was trying to get out before the 20th memorial of 9/11, that was his goal, get out before then. Told the military advisors told him, hey, that's going to be a problem if we signaled everybody we're leaving on a certain day. And then, of course, we leave behind one of our most important assets, Bagram Air Base, and an estimated almost $80 billion of arms and equipment, turning Afghanistan into one of the largest arm dealers the last couple of years because we gave them a gift. And so we were just signaling our weakness to the whole world. And if you're Russia, you can draw a direct line between the disastrous Biden-Harris withdrawal from Afghanistan, which cost American lives, and then the greenlighting of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. A direct line. But you know what's great about this election that's coming up? What's great is that we have, for the first time in 100 years, voters have an opportunity to not have a theoretical choice. We've got a case study in front of us of what the current administration has done, represented by Kamala Harris, and what the prior administration achieved under Donald Trump. So this first time since Grover Cleveland, American voters get to choose between a former president and a sitting administration. And make no mistake, as much as she and the fairy tale press wants to act like Kamala Harris is not part of the current administration, I mean, I don't know how they perform that magic act. They want to have all of us have amnesia because that somehow she has not been at the table, that she's not been in the administration or a part of it or even control of this administration at all, that she's running like she's the change agent when she has to own every one of these policies. And she was right there front and center. How much we forget, just a month ago, she was completely complicit in one of the biggest lies ever foisted on the American people, and that was her standing up and saying, even after the night of Joe Biden's debate, saying that he was a rocket science behind closed doors, and she was covering up his incapacity to serve as President of the United States. So let's look at our choice. 4 more years, again, of Donald Trump, or 4 more years of Kamala Harris? Okay, let's think about it. Donald Trump imposed maximum pressure on Iran. Simple to do. Hey, world's largest sponsor of terrorism. Let's put pressure on them. And we're going to give maximum support to Israel. And it's been detailed tonight, all the things that he did. The result was we had historic Middle East peace, the Abraham Accords. Kamala Harris, she supported maximum pressure against Israel and maximum appeasement for Iran. And that goes back to Obama with the Iran nuclear deal. Biden was part of that. Now Biden and Harris part of that. Now Harris and Walz. They just keep on going. They've got this fantasy, the thing that somehow if we appease Iran and we release sanctions and we release tens of billions of dollars of their frozen assets, that they will not pursue a nuclear weapon. I came here today from a high-level security conference. At that conference, we had Joint Chiefs of Staff, we had the Chief of the Army, we had the Secretary of the Air Force, we had the Deputy of the CIA, and we had a lot of the leading tech companies in America that working on intel. And you know what the conclusion was from some of the people that have been in serving our country for over 40 years? That the world is more dangerous today than any time in their career. And part of the result of that appeasement and that weakness was October 7th. That's what happened. And they celebrated. We've seen the horrific videos they have cheering the atrocities that they committed. Donald Trump imposed sanctions on Iran and had them on their knees financially. They were down to less than $5 billion of capital as a country. Now they've got an estimated hundreds of billions of dollar capital, all because of the failed sanctions of the Biden-Harris and turning Iran back into a major oil exporting company. Donald Trump took us out of the worst deal in history, the Iran nuclear deal, and then Trump, when we knew that we had issues, whether it was ISIS or whether it was their terrorism organization, Trump ordered and our team executed, and we took out Soleimani. Kamala Harris, make no mistake, she is a 180-degree turn from these successes. President Trump is right on energy. He's right on national security. He's right on the border. He's right on economy. Kamala Harris is exactly the opposite, 180 degrees on all of those. And like Obama and Biden, Kamala supports going back into the Iran nuclear deal. One of the questions at this security conference is, how close is Iran to getting a nuclear weapon? That's world-changing for all of us, for sure. It's world-changing for everybody in the world. And the answer was they're getting closer. And that's not a good thing for any of us. And she criticized President Trump when he took out Soleimani. She criticized him for that. I'm talking about Kamala. Donald Trump squeezed Hamas and every other terrorist group. And then the other way that he squeezed them was by squeezing Iran and ending American funding for the UN's incredible UNRWA. I mean, that organization and what they're doing to help support Hamas, Trump cut all that off. Kamala Harris, she backed sanctions for relief for Iran. She backed the tens of billions of dollars of money. She backed giving more money back, hundreds of millions to UNRWA, which tripled because that went as humanitarian aid for Hamas. And we know that some of Hamas was building out their headquarters underneath the floors of hospitals in Gaza. Donald Trump ended America's participation in the anti-Semitic UN Human Rights Council. He did that. We can cheer for that. Kamala Harris backed America's rejoining of that council, which today is one of the greatest single sources of anti-Semitism in the world. Donald Trump enforced the Taylor Force Act to put an end to the Palestinian pay for slay. Here we go. Kamala Harris, she backed all kinds of loopholes in the same law, and that allowed pay to slay to continue. Donald Trump recognized Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Kamala still hasn't. Donald Trump moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and recognized that city as the undivided, eternal capital of Israel. Kamala Harris backed pressure on Israel to reopen a Palestinian consulate in Jerusalem and pave the way to a divided city. Donald Trump issued an executive order to send a simple message to every college campus in America. Stop anti-Semitism on your campus or lose federal funding. Kamala Harris, desperately trying to win the votes of students, professors, administrators at these universities that 95% vote for her party, and they're the ones that are fueling anti-Semitic hatred on college campuses. They fueled it throughout this entire winter. They defaced the statue of George Washington, on and on and on. It was all over the press. She supported all that. So here's the bottom line. America, of course, can't afford 4 more years of Kamala Harris. We can't afford her economics. We can't afford her open borders. We can't afford any of that. But the Jewish community in Israel should not be forced to endure 4 more years of Kamala Harris. So think about, who do you think Hamas wants to win our election? One of the biggest lies that was told at the Democratic Convention was when Kamala and her thing tried to make the statement that somehow our adversaries around the world would be supporting Donald Trump. This lie has been going on since the Russian hoax in 2016. Who do you think Iran wants to win the election? The one that is providing them tens of billions of dollars of support, allowing them to fund terrorism and is negotiating on their behalf? Do you think that Iran wants to deal with the strength of Donald Trump again? I don't think so. Iran, Hamas, and all of our adversaries, they want Kamala Harris because they want a president who has policies that has made our countries weaker, that has made our allies less secure. They want a president like Kamala who negotiates for the terrorists and again, helps them out financially. For America, for the Jewish community, for Israel, we need to do one thing, and everybody here, no matter what you're doing and how much you've given or how many doors you've knocked on or how many dollars you've sent, we need to do more because we have got to send Donald Trump back to the White House in November. This choice is so clear, and is so clear on every other issue as well, but Kamala Harris believes Americans, like all of you hardworking entrepreneurs who've created businesses, thinks that all of you should be taxed more. She thinks you ought to be taxed on unrealized gains. She thinks you ought to be taxed on capital gains. And then, of course, she's like an arsonist that says, I'm going to put out the fire. She says, I've got plans to stop inflation. I'm going to stop inflation with price controls. And I wasn't aware that she'd gone to economic school in Venezuela. But with this is a failed Marxist playbook that comes directly out of the Soviet Union. And she talks about the opportunity economy. I guess if you're a small business and you want to open up a grocery store, you'll have the opportunity for her to tell you that the federal government will tell you what you can charge for a loaf of bread or a carton of eggs. I mean, it's ridiculous that someone who's 7 weeks away, we're 61 days away from the election, and I guess that's more like 8.5 weeks, but we're that close to the election that she would stand at a press conference and actually introduce socialistic price controls, and people in the audience would cheer for her. All of you that understand that American markets, American innovation, which has led to greatness, we've lifted 1 billion people out of poverty in this planet with American innovation and with free markets, with competition. We've done that. And you understand it, and Donald Trump understands it. That's why when he was president, he lowered taxes, he cut red tape, he'll bring back respect for America abroad. When he did, we had the strongest economy, we had the safest borders, we had prosperity at home, and we had peace abroad. He's done it before, and he will do it again. And then we have the border, and Kamala Harris is, she was named the open border czar, and an open border it was. I mean, no matter how hard the media tries to spin the role, she's always going to be remembered for her role as the open border czar. And I can tell you, it's simply as governor of North Dakota, one of the great honors of being a governor of state is you're the commander-in-chief of your own National Guard. We've had, during the last 4 years, almost continuously, we've had National Guard deployed at the border. I've been to the border more times than either Kamala or Biden. I've seen firsthand how their failed policies have invited a mass invasion into our country, terrorists and drugs coming every day. We're taking mass casualties. We've lost more than the equivalent of 5 Vietnams of Americans who've died of overdoses since Joe Biden took office. And China is, of course, sponsoring all that, and Kamala Harris has done nothing about that. Donald Trump will get control of our borders. He'll root out the terrorists. He'll hold China accountable for killing Americans. And how do we know he'll do that? Because he's done it before, and he'll do it again. Kamala was the sponsor of the Green New Deal, an extremist agenda that emboldens our enemies, impoverishes our own citizens because it raises the price of energy, which raises the price of every other product. I mean, part of her being like the tying vote on the Inflation Creation Act when she was president of the Senate. The energy policies that she supported have been a gift to China, to Russia, to Iran, and Venezuela. And what have they done to the American middle class and the American working class? It's been a hammer it's cost more to put food on the table and gas in your car. It's eroded the earnings of Americans. And she supports banning energy production on federal lands. She's worked on that all along she supported that. And then last week she said, no, I'm for energy. I hope Americans, this is an IQ test, I hope people understand that if someone does something their entire life and says one time, no, I didn't mean it, that we understand what they really meant, which is they have been opposed to, and their entire administration, the Biden-Harris administration, has been focused on really suppressing and crushing traditional American energy, which we need. We need that. And under her watch, I mean, it's just a simple thing. North Dakota, of course, we're a huge energy producing state, but North Dakota, our production is down since Joe Biden took office. Iran's production is way up since they took office. That's about all you need to know about what their energy policy. But Donald Trump will make America energy dominant, and he understands it by unleashing that prosperity beneath our feet will drive economic opportunity, it'll pay down our debt, it'll strengthen our national security, and he'll do this by championing innovation over regulation. Teddy Roosevelt said, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." When Donald Trump is president again, he's going to use energy domination as the big stick that he wields to make energy and our allies strong. And how do we know? Because he's done it before, and he'll do it again. So RJC, I've given you the comparison tonight. I think you know the answer. And yes, we have to win the Senate. Yes, we have to win the House. Yes, we got to win governorships. But you all know that when the top of the ticket, when the president in a presidential year, when they win and win big, that's when we lift up. That's when we win back the House. That's when close Senate races fall our way. That's when governors take over more states and drive Republican principles to our citizens. So I leave you with this. When we've got this choice between Trump and Harris, do you want to make America safe again? Do you want to make America strong again? Do you want to make America great again? Well, that's good, because there's only one way that we're going to make those things happen. We got to stand with a president who will put our country back on track, restore peace and strength throughout the world, stand by Israel, and make sure that we reelect one of the greatest political allies that Israel has ever known. Let's do everything we can over the next 2 months. Join me in reelecting Donald J. Trump as the President of the United States. Thank you. God bless you. God bless Israel, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.